Hi everyone, you know what time it is. It's closet time. And you know what that means. Closet time means I tell a story in the closet. Or I tell you about a dream I had last night. I haven't had any dreams that I could recall in several weeks, and I had a very fascinating one the other night. And as usual, a description of what I would consider to be another dimension or parallel dimension of Earth. A location that was very similar to our reality, but it had subtle differences. And then this particular place, it was quite quirky and interesting and odd compared to some of the things that I saw here. Very different in some ways. So let me get into it. I was basically in what we would consider the United States and in what we would consider Florida. I was able to see both like a topographical aerial view of the topography, the location that I was in, and I was also on the surface level, so I was kind of observing this area from multiple different perspectives. So I was able to see that I was in like a bunch of scattered like peninsula or islands that were off the coastline, which isn't anything remarkable or unusual. In Florida, they have the exact same thing right now, and I've actually lived in Florida for 6 months, and there's a bunch of small towns and cities that are located on peninsulas on very flat ground, sea level, that are off the coastline. What made this place different and interesting, first of all, it seemed like a very large city, and the city was on these very narrow islands, and there was this like one really giant road that just kind of blew through these islands, and that was like the main highway, and it was connecting like what seemed like dozens of them. It just never ended, and this was on the sea level. However, if you observed towards the mainland away from the coastline, it was a completely different topography. It was not only not flat, it looked like evergreen forests that you would see in Florida, evergreen forest that you would see in Washington, that you would see in Alaska. It was an elevation probably several hundred feet high, and these beautiful forests were elevated high above this very flat sea, like island city, and it made this really interesting kind of contrast between the two completely seemingly unrelated, very different types of environments. How would you make sense of something like that being here? It wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense, but in that particular location, it made perfect sense, and they somehow matched up perfectly, and it was stunningly beautiful to see this island city, and in the background these amazing, beautiful evergreen forests that you would see in Olympia National Park, Mount Rainier. That's what it reminded me of. And it was interesting, and we're kind of just driving around the city, walking around with my current wife. She was in the dream. And there were these food vendors everywhere selling all kinds of very strange things, and we would go around and we would try this and we would try that, and there's this one particular food vendor that kept following us around everywhere we went. And these food vendors, everything was slightly different and odd. Some of these food vendors had cars, and like that looked like cars that you would see here, but they had literally like tables attached like all the way around the circumference of the car. It made like this giant circle, and they would drive around really slow, and they would literally like be on the driver's side, and they would have a table aligned with their window, and you would pick an item, and they would give you your food from that table as they drive around really slow. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that here. It was really odd looking, really strange. And we kind of just kept exploring this area. And after being done in this island city, which was really just beautiful white marble, like marble looking buildings, beautiful coastline. It was really bright, like very, very shiny, bright location. And we went into this evergreen forest, and this food vendor with this odd contraption mobile kept following us around. And I remember what he looked like too. He had this long white beard. He kind of looked like Santa Claus. And he followed us into this evergreen forest. And oh man, and we watched the sunset of the city from this forested area, and it was just astonishingly, amazingly gorgeous and beautiful. The sunset was really strange and different. It wasn't, I guess I could describe it as that it had like more of a wider array of colors than that you would see here, perhaps. It was like more of like a purple colored sunset. It was like almost entirely purple with lots of shades of other things in between. And that was the last thing I could recall, was this food vendor was following us as we were trying to see this sunset from the forest. That was it. So if I have another dream, I'll get back to you.